Welcome to the UIAAA Connection podcast. Hometown Ticketing is proud to be the exclusive sponsor of the UIAAA Connection podcast and to provide schools nationwide with the best options for digital ticketing for their events. Visit their website at hometownticketing.com to learn how they can make digital ticketing possible and simple at your school. Thank you to Hometown Ticketing for their exclusive sponsorship of the UIAAA Connection podcast.
Welcome back to another edition of the UIAAA Connection. I'm your host, Mark Hutch Hunter. Today, our guest is Gillie, Certified Master Athletic Administrator at Salem Hills High School. Welcome to the podcast, Lee.
Thank you.
Let me also add, Lee is the incoming president-elect in July, so we're excited to have you. Let's have you start off, Lee, by sharing with our listeners here in Utah and across the country where you grew up, where you went to college, your first job, etc.
Okay. I grew up in Spanish Fork, Utah here. And at the high school there, been involved with athletics. I lettered in 4 different sports, participated in 5. I didn't quite letter in wrestling. That was a real tough sport. But the sports I participated in, cross country, soccer, track and field, and being a soccer player, I was also the kicker for the football team. From there, I went to Utah State University to go to school. I played soccer up there for the team there. We traveled, some of the Western U.S. states and so forth, Colorado, Idaho, Nevada. And I studied biology and chemistry to be a teacher, as well as earn a coaching minor because I loved my coaches through high school. My dad coached me when Little League soccer, and I loved that. And so I just wanted the opportunity to come back and do coaching as well as teaching so I could influence as many kids as possible for good. My first teaching assignment, coaching assignment was at Payson High School. Is where I first was hired. And I was there for about 7-8 years until Salem Hills High School opened in 2008. And then I transferred just over to here and been teaching and coaching still. So.
And who was the football coach at Payson when you started there?
At Payson, I was there during a transition.
Was Dave McKee still there, or had he moved on?
He was there teaching. He was the Japanese teacher. And transitioning from there to administration. So
I mention him because you wouldn't know this, but he's my second cousin. So it's
really?
A small world that we live in. Let me ask a follow-up question. How was it being on the football team as a 4-sport athlete? Because obviously you kicked and you kicked well, but I'm wondering if the football players accepted you openly, or if there was they just treated you as part of the team, or because obviously you were playing soccer and then you'd have to take Friday nights off to kick with the football team.
Yeah. So with us, I was running cross country in football season.
Oh, okay.
That fall, because soccer is in the spring here. So yes, I'd go run my cross country workout right after school, and then I'd go meet up with the football team for special teams practice. And then coincidentally or not, they would end football practice with conditioning. So I'd get extra conditioning running in. So players were pretty accepting of that. They probably didn't like that I was probably a little lighter and could run a little further since I was in shape for cross country. But they treated me pretty well, and it was good times. The coach was good to me. He brought me in, and the players are good. So it was fun.
That's excellent. Let's talk for a moment about the sports you spent time playing in your youth, and maybe some of the stories from that, and maybe where you first got I know you mentioned it earlier, but where you got the first itch to start coaching.
Played soccer the most. Started, like I said, Little League, like as a 5-year-old. When my family moved to Spanish Fork, my dad got me set up in a league, and he was already doing some youth coaching and had played a little bit in some college in the early days of BYU. And so having him as my coach through 4th and 5th grade, I just watched and kind of observed the way he coached us as boys And then going into junior high, we had some high school kids who were actually our coaches. And it was fun to be a part of that and to look up to those guys playing on the high school field and so forth. So fun to watch them. And I think the itch probably came later in my high school years. I had the opportunity to do some teaching of my own peers and so forth through youth leadership, scout leadership. And that's where I found some enjoyment in doing teaching. And so going on through the high school years, I liked my coaches, enjoyed them all, the lessons they taught me. So I was like, I want to kind of do something like that to teach and coach and give back.
Along that lines, and I know you've mentioned your father, but let's have you mention some of the other mentors or leaders you had in your life that had an effect on you.
Okay. My cross country coach was Dave Boyack.
There you go.
Yep. So he taught me well. He was my junior high PE teacher as well. And so we do the mile test and he would recruit cross country and track kids from there. And, he gave great wisdom, great advice, he led by hard work. And so it was good to follow his example there and the things he did for our team. My football coach was Doug Snell, who's also an athletic director. And he always, would say hi to me in the halls and treat me great in math class. And, like I said, reached out to me and asked me to join the football team. And so that those two are good influences as far as coach. And then they've gone on to be athletic directors and to follow their example. I also appreciate a lot from my high school soccer coach from my junior, senior year, Eric Rainey. He did a lot to teach me about working hard and being part of the team and everything.
Let's talk for a moment about the job of an athletic administrator, athletic director, which you are and have been for quite a few years. How has it changed since you first got the job?
The quick, easy, obvious ones is the paperwork or electronic paperwork, however we want to call it, continues to add yearly. I started about 5-6 years ago and it feels like it's doubled in just that amount of time. The sports has grown as we've added new sports. And I think there's been an increase in push to, as there has been in the classroom as well, to be more accommodating to all the student athletes and their types. And that's tricky, like it is in a classroom, because you get a team of 30 boys, girls on a soccer team, and to accommodate each of their individuality, that's its own challenge. Where growing up in my days as a player, it was the coach is going to work this way. We're all going to buy into the coach and go that route. And now it's trying to bring individuals into a team and make a team.
Yeah, very well said. Let me put a follow-up question in there. How was the COVID year for you? I've heard from others, but there in the spring of 2000, the middle of March, all of a sudden the sports are canceled. And then of course you went through testing in the fall and then the next spring. So let's talk for a moment about that and the challenges it presented to you.
For me, being a little more introvert, the time locked down was almost like healthy and recuperating, just to be home with my family and spend that time there. My oldest right now is only 13. So we have a young family. So my wife's a teacher. We just set a routine. We still come to school with our kids and they do their homework. We do our homework. So having kind of that break of the full rush of go with school and sports all the time was a little bit of a reprieve for myself and my family. For my athletes and my coaches, especially the ones that were more extroverted, it was a huge emotional toll that they didn't have that daily connection with each other and participate in their sports. And that was really hard to see. Transitioning out of it, the challenges have been, yes, the testing and all the protocols added to keep everyone safe, to adjust the fans. Fans had a hard time with that. I think the big thing was that it seems like a number of people coming out of it wanted to make up for lost time, and they're trying to do double time to make up for it. And that's create our own emotional stresses for all of us in athletics.
Yeah, I can, I'm not sure, and I've been out of it for quite a few years, but I'm not sure that I would have wanted to go through that. Let me ask you this, Lee. What's one thing you wish you had known at the start of your career that you know now that you didn't know then?
As I look at the ADs that I've followed and from my school in the 80s around, is for me, one thing I have to keep working on is my people skills, personal skills, and how valuable that is. As our last conference, Everett Kelly Polo and Rob Cuff gave a presentation on diversity. And one of the key things they brought and talked about was getting to know people's story. And I think sometimes I get doing a lot of the busyness and get go, go, go. And I need to learn to slow down and make those story connections with people and make those personal connections, because that's the key piece of this position. We're serving people and helping make a difference there.
What's your biggest failure and what did you learn from it, Lee?
Let's see. Like as an athletic director?
No, it's just open-ended. So it could
just open-ended.
Be as an AD, could be as a coach, just could be anything from your life.
I think probably what I've just mentioned, some of that is I am kind of what people refer that type A personality, or just checklist, work through things, get my details, my ducks in a row type thing, and a worker and a go, go, go. I need to take more time to connect with my players, coaches, and so forth. And so I think probably my biggest failure is missing some of those opportunities in the past. I feel like I've connected with some, well, probably quite a few, but I probably could have done more and better on that. Something I need to work forward on. So.
All right, let's talk for a moment about your certification. You're a certified master athletic administrator, or a CA before that, but I want you to talk about your journey to achieve both those certifications and the importance of being certified for those of our listeners who are not certified.
Okay. When I attended my first Utah conference in that spring, I think of 2017, remember like listening to Jamie Sheets talk about jumping in with both feet to be an AD and to get all involved with that. Being a, I guess, goal-oriented driven person, I looked at those certifications, classes, and I was like, well, this is what I want to do. These are things I need to learn and to improve myself and make myself better for my coaches and the student athletes. So I looked at the requirements, started taking classes at the conferences. I even took some online summer classes just to further the process and make it go as fast as possible, so I could feel like jumping in both feet and making those advancements, so I could have that knowledge and criteria and certification to be the best that I could. So after earning the CAA, then looking at the project, I think I took my idea from Michael O'Connell when he presented at one of the conferences, what he'd done with his athletic directors in creating that summit. And as I went back to my school, I recognized every school has a mission statement, a vision, a motto, but my athletic department didn't have one. We were just riding on each team's doing their own thing. And then visiting Maple Mountain, where Dave Boyak's at, noticing the signs in their gyms and so forth, that's where I took the idea and said, I need to come back to my coaches and we need to create our athletic mission statement, our athletic vision, our athletic motto, so we have something to guide and stream us. And then allowed us an opportunity to also kind of rebrand our department too, with a new logo, a vision that we could use, a catchy phrase. And so I went through the year on that process. We did a book read, and then it kind of naturally came together for that CMAA project. Is I could just put that into a PowerPoint, a history of what we've done over the course of the year, where we're moving forward. And it's been hugely beneficial for myself, my coaches, the student athletes. And now as we keep taking it further, is now to our community. So.
Well done on the project. Thank you for sharing that. For those who are thinking about going the CMAA route, let me ask another follow-up, because a lot of people are fearful, I don't know if that's the correct word, of that examination. And I know obviously you passed the exam, I passed the exam years and years ago, but talk about sitting for the exam and about how it's comprehensive, but it's nothing to be afraid of, if you would.
True. It's, as the advice was given to me a few times, was it's once you've gone through your law classes and you've served time as an athletic director and had experience as a coach, a lot of it's using some of your same common sense and reasoning, making sure you're looking out for your student athletes and abiding by rules and laws that we all live by. So using that, I did take some of the sample tests that were available online at the NIAAA site. And then going to the test review is very helpful. Clayton conducted a review that I had at the state conference a couple years back, answered all the questions, made it easy and calming situation and so forth. So it's, yep, very achievable just by taking the classes and living as you should live.
Thank you for sharing that. Let's talk for a moment about the recent UIAAA Conference. It's actually the second one that's held since we had to postpone the one during COVID.
Yeah.
But to give your impressions about the conference, people that you saw there, classes you were able to take, any information you were able to learn and take back to your school.
I think the best thing I enjoy is the more frequently I go to the state conferences as well as the national conferences, it builds for me, the camaraderie with the other athletic directors in the state, to see more and more familiar faces, and then each year to be able to meet new ones and make more connections. It's one of the things I love about athletics is team and to be part of a team. And so this allows me to be part of a team with the other athletic directors. So when I go to different games or host different teams, there's a familiar face and there's someone to talk to and connect with. And so from taking the classes, having fellow ADs in the state teach those to learn their ideas, then I can go home and email them and text them with follow-up stuff and ask for the tools and resources they use. And then just the insights, like I mentioned, the diversity panel that was, or workshop shared by Rob and Everett was excellent. Superintendent Robbins was phenomenal, a dynamic individual, share his leadership and give us insight to what superintendents are looking for us. Lisa Walker, who also happens to be in my district, but to hear her talk about the medic side and what we need to do there, it's just to have that connection and that camaraderie and to communicate and network is critical and vital to me.
Let's talk for a moment about, you've been added to the UIAAA state faculty and you have taught at least on one occasion. I think it's 2 or 3 now, if my memory serves, but you know, I'm old, so I think I could get that wrong. But
No,
talk
good.
for a minute to our audience about the opportunity you've had to step in and teach some LTI courses and maybe some encouragement for those who are on the fence about if they want to start teaching or not.
For me, it's just an extension to be able to be in the classroom teaching as well as being a coach out on the field. It's just an opportunity to share. You know, that the adage is that we learn more by teaching it than we do by learning it the first time. So for me to go through those couple courses a second time, to me review the material and to share that with others. But to me, the benefit is asking some of the questions to hear everyone else's input. So then I get to learn some more additionally. And when you teach, yeah, I've done a different couple times. So it's a different group of 8 athletic directors, administrators each time. I get different input and different information from those different groups about what they're doing related to the topic we're covering. And then the people you teach with are very helpful, very supportive, great and easy to work with. I mean, everyone looks out for each other. So, I mean, we cover for each other. You know, I've been where I've asked questions and it's quiet. And then one of the teachers I'm working with, you know, jump in to fill in that gap. So it helps any awkwardness or nervousness smooth over because we help each other out.
Some great insight. Thank you for sharing that. What's one common myth about being an athletic director that you'd like to debunk?
Well, listening to some of these others, that the common one is, you know, it's all we do is watch sports all day. So we don't do that. To me, the other thing is that athletic directors, we're not our only goal isn't just athletics. We're here for the education of the students and the welfare and the benefit of the students. As more and more moving to full-time in our state, which is great and beneficial, I think what it's allowing is athletic directors to work more with the kids and the students inside the classroom, inside the building, as well as in the athletic venue, as well as help mentor and develop our coaches. So I think to debunk we're not just athletics only. We're here for students in the education, in the realm of athletics, as well as activities, and we're trying to serve all of them and help them develop as we develop our coaches.
Well said. I want to explore now for a moment, Lee. I mentioned earlier in the podcast that you are will be the president-elect of the UIAAA come July 1st, 2022. So take us through that journey. Your first conference is back in 2016 or 17, so that's 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden now you've joined the association. Obviously, you jumped in with both feet, if you talked about it earlier. And now you're the president-elect. So take us through that process and maybe some encouragement for others who are thinking about that's what they want to do.
So yeah, when I joined and started serving as athletic director, I kind of wanted to prep myself. People had mentioned, join, you can start teaching and start serving. For me, where I was at, I'm teaching and I was coaching and being an athletic director all at the same time. So my plates were pretty full. And so when people had asked to do volunteer more, I was like, well, I need to temper where I'm at. Plus I need clearance from my wife and kids so that I see them at least a little bit.
Sure.
So then I went through and did the certifications, and then I guess the peers, Dave Boyack see me regularly. We see each other. Everett would see me often, and I guess they would start planning the ideas and tell me the other stories of how the other presidents came along. And so I guess in the last couple years, Everett's been asking me regularly. Dave Boyack's been asking me regularly. So then I just started asking more questions of them. I'd ask advice and hints from Mike Hunter. I visit with Katham Beer on it, just to kind of get their insight of how it is. I think I even talked to Ryan Grunig for a little bit over the course of the years, just to say, what is it going to be like? Am I going to be able to handle this kind of thing? Kind of gain some insights from them. And then I guess the final push was that our district is giving me the opportunity for next year to move to full time. And so I kind of made mention to Everett when I got closer to that point, then I'd be willing to make another step in. And I finished coaching this last fall, so retired from that to free up. And then with being able to move to full-time AD, and then I just went and asked for the blessing of my wife, and she said I could do it. We could go forward. So went forward for it.
Well, we're excited to have you. And I think you have a long line of Nebo district presidents, all the way back to Tim Braithwaite, of course, yep. Dave Boyack, Everett, who you've mentioned earlier, who will become the president. Correct. And so we have Nebo back to back with you and Everett. So that's kind of exciting. What's the favorite part of your job about being an athletic director?
I love serving my coaches and my student athletes, and I love finding ways to recognize them with awards, to see them be able to light up, for the student athletes to then light up with their parents, to see the coaches being recognized and they're recognized by their peers. It's fun to serve them, and it's fun to see them be recognized. So
let's finish up then with a couple of questions. The first one being, you have 2 suggestions for a brand new athletic director. And these 2 suggestions are a must in order for them to be a success. What would those 2 suggestions be?
You need to be organized, and you have to have a system organized so you can cover everything that's on your responsibilities. And then secondly, to, I guess, survive in the beginning and to have a positive experience, you need to network. You've got to have a mentor or mentors, people you can reach out to and connect to ask for help. And people that understand your situation will listen to you and hear you out to help you through.
Very good. Very great answers all through this interview, Lee. I want to thank you. What's one question that I should have asked you, Lee, that I failed to ask you?
I don't know. I think I'm good. I think we got them all.
All right. Well, we'll leave it at that. That wraps it up for another edition of the UIAAA Connection. Once again, our guest has been Lee Gillie, Certified Master Athletic Administrator, the Athletic Director at Salem Hills High School, and soon to be President-elect of the Utah Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association. Thanks for being on the podcast, Lee.
Thank you, Hutch.
For our listeners, we hope you tune in again next week for another edition of the UIAAA Connection.